Hi everyone, it's Crystal here from Stephenson again, and we're back with another Christmas recipe. As you can see, we're still in the festive spirit. For this recipe we'll be doing festive baubles, and for this you will need our crystal donkey milk and crystal ST. You'll also need a Christmas tree mould similar to the one we used in our last recipe. You will also need some ball moulds for the baubles, and you can use any festive fragrance you like. We've chosen to use buttercream for this recipe. If you'd like a list of the full ingredients and everything you need to know, have a look down below or download our recipe guidebook. Now you're going to take your crystal donkey milk base and remove the lid by pulling the easy tab on the side. Once you've done this, you're going to just ease off each of the sides by pulling them apart, and take your knife and just go over the edges that you've just pulled away from the base. And you do all four sides with this to make it easier to remove. And now you are going to flip it over and push in the centre to remove it as easily as possible. Now you're going to take a cutter and just chop about 1/3 of the base. I've chosen to use a cutter rather than a knife, but you can use whichever tool you prefer. And you put back the 2/3 that you don't need, as we'll use that later. So now you're just going to chop it again, just to make them slightly smaller cubes, as this really does help it melt faster and more evenly. Once you finish chopping, your cube should look something similar to this, around 1 inch. Now you can add in your fragrance and colour. Here we've already pre-measured out our fragrance for the entire recipe, so you just add in what you feel is appropriate at this stage. Now we'll take our mica powder and just add a little bit of this. As it's already a white base, it's just to add a little bit of shimmer to it. Give it a good stir to make sure everything is well combined. Now you're going to take your rubbing alcohol spray and just spray the top to ensure all bubbles are removed at this stage. And now we're going to prep our mould. So you're just going to take both pieces and spray them with rubbing alcohol again, just to ensure it peels easily when removed. Place it together and ensure that each of the sides are very well put together, as we did have an incident and it spilt everywhere. You don't want that to happen, so just double, triple check it to make sure that everything is together on all the sides. It should look something like this once it's done, and now you're ready to pour. Pour your crystal donkey milk straight into the mould. We've chosen to use an easy pour nozzle as it gets you as close as possible to minimise spillage. However, if it does spill over the sides, that's absolutely fine. It will just set later and you can peel it away. Once you've filled it almost to the top, you're just going to tap it up and down ever so slowly to ensure you don't overspill. But if you do, again, it's all good. This will ensure that the bubbles are removed, because you don't want to have holes in the middle of your embed. This will just tap any excess bubbles all the way to the top and fill any airtight spaces. Just give it a final tap and spritz the top with rubbing alcohol again. Now you'll need to leave this to set in an upright place. So you take your Christmas tree embed, now it's all set and demoulded, and you want to measure it up to the size of the balls. You can roughly place the measurement by holding it over and then do the final cut on this flat surface. You just want to put this back in the mould just to check it does fit. If it doesn't, you can just take off a little bit more from the edges until it fits perfectly. Now it sits in just the way it should. Then you do the exact same process and repeat it until you've filled all 6 ball moulds. To make it easier, you can remove one of the ones that fit perfectly and measure it against that one and repeat the process. Now you can place them all into the moulds and ensure they're all facing upright. Now you want to take the lid for the bowl mould and ensure you push it down on each of the sides and in between the balls, as you don't want anything to spill over. And then you're going to take your rubbing alcohol spray and just spritz the top of the mould. Take your crystal ST base and chop it directly in the middle, as you'll only need half for now, and you can place the other half back in the tub for the red balls, as we're going to do the green balls first. You want to chop this again into smaller pieces, around 1-inch cubes. You want to place these into a microwave safe jug, and then you're going to place this in the microwave for about 1.5 minutes or until it's melted. Just ensure you keep checking on it to make sure it's not overspilt and it's melted thoroughly. Something similar to this, now you're going to add in your colouring. We've chosen to use a combination of liquid and mica powder, as the liquid adds the vivid green, whereas the mica powder gives it that shimmer. You want to give it a good thorough stir, as all the mica powder doesn't dissolve instantly. As you can see, it's really working in there. Just add in a spritz of rubbing alcohol, just to get rid of them little bits of bubbles on the top. You can see it's looking really shimmery and the light's capturing it beautifully at the moment. It's exactly what we want to see. Now you're going to take a little bit of fragrance. Again, here you can add in as much or little as you like, as we've pre-measured it all out beforehand. Give it a final stir. Now you're going to spritz it one last time and let's get ready to pour. Take your bowl moulds that we prepped earlier with the Christmas trees inside them, spritz again and let's pour. You want to be as careful as possible with this, as it's only a very small opening for it to ensure we get a full bowl. At the end, we've chosen to use the easy pour nozzle again, as it just helps us get as close as possible. If it spills out, that's absolutely fine, as we've actually accounted for this in the measurements for the base. You just want to ensure you fill them all up as full as possible. Don't worry if you can see it sinking back in again, or it doesn't look as full as it did when you first poured. We can rectify this after. If it does pour out, as we said, it's not a problem, as once it dries you can peel it away very easily and it doesn't affect the actual ball within. As this recipe requires 2 different colours, you will repeat this exact same process for the red balls. Just give it a little tap to get any air bubbles out at the very end. Now chop your crystal donkey milk base. You will be using this to fill the rest of the loaf mould, so for this you will need a full 1 kg tray, as well as the remainder from the Christmas tree moulds. You will need to fill this into the jug, but don't be afraid that it looks like it's overfilling, because once it melts it will sink down. However, if you do feel you want to use 2 jugs, then absolutely use as many as you need. Now that it's melted, you want to give it a good mix through to make sure the full base has melted. Now going to add in the remainder of the fragrance. You can split this between the 2 jugs however you like, as it's all going into the loaf. Now we're going to take our mica. We are using a white gold mica. You can use any coloured shimmer mica you want, which will blend really nicely with the white. You can use a silver if you wish, or you can use a white gold or even a gold. Give it a good mix to ensure it's thoroughly combined with the base. As you can see, we've already done our red baubles and they are at the front. So now we're going to go ahead and do the green ones. Once we've removed the excess layer, it should be super simple to just remove them, as we've got rubbing alcohol spray in there. You will just need to pull back the top layer and then turn it over and then just pop them out one by one. As you can see, they're perfectly shaped Christmas tree baubles. Now you're going to begin placing the baubles into the bottom of the vase, whilst ensuring that the Christmas trees are facing as upright as possible. However, if they do move, that's okay. If you can just get them as close as possible to being upright when you cut them later, it just makes them all look a little bit similar. We've chosen to place all the red baubles on the bottom and the green ones on the top, however you can do it whichever way you like. And there we have it. Now you're going to take the melted crystal donkey milk and just give it another mix through and then pour that in between. Again, we're using an easy pour nozzle because this will help us get as close as possible around the balls. Spray the top with rubbing alcohol as we are mixing two different bases. You can see it's a little bit clumpy still, so we're just going to go ahead and put this back in the microwave a little bit to make sure it's smoothly melted. This is now the perfect consistency, so we're just going to go ahead and pour this over the top of all of our baubles to make sure we get into all the little gaps around it. We don't want any air bubbles. You want to make sure that you're filling the loaf to the very top. So you want to go ahead and use everything you've got in that jug. And as you can see, it's still not quite there, so we're going to go ahead with the other jug after we sprayed a little bit of IMS to remove any bubbles that have currently formed. And you're just going to fill up all the last little gaps. Just like so. Now you want to just tap your base to ensure that any air bubbles are gone. Then you can take your rubbing alcohol spray and just give it one last spritz over the top. The loaf is now set, so let's demold. Pull away each of the sides, turn it upright and peel away from yourself to demold. Pull this all the way back. As you can see, this is the simplest way to demold your loaf. Place them all to one side and let's get cutting. Now you're going to chop your loaf. We've chosen to use a cutter as it has a serrated edge and this adds an intricate detail onto each of the bars. You can use a straight edge knife and give a clean finish, but we just feel this adds a nice little Christmas detail. You can use a cutting aid to help you measure out the slices. We've chosen to freestyle for this video. And here you have it. Here is a festive bauble so far.